Variable editor. You will find this under the globals button. So variables are containers that allow you to store information and then use them everywhere in the tutorial. That's why they're called globals, because they're just globally available for you to use. You can store data into them, you can read data from them, and use this in your tutorial flow logic and when you build score calculators and whatever. So they are really useful and very essential for building any sort of logic into the tutorial. So let's take a look at this editor here. Each line here is one variable. For example, some best practice variables. There's players active if you want to track which player is currently playing. There's players count, how many players do we have in the game overall, what is the playing time, which round are we in, which turn are we in. And then there's a lot of control variables for controlling the tutorial, and then custom variables that allow you to add your own. So let's start looking at these. First of all, let's look at this layout. On the left side here, you have the names of available variables. So these are the variables you can use in your content. Then there's default value column, which is the value that you set here is what will be when players access the content, what will be the default values that the tutorial will, or the content will start with. And then there's test values for you. So you can, these are just to be used within this editor. So you can put any values, for example, okay, let's say we have already played, what is this, seconds. So we have played 500 seconds and we have 3 players and we have played 4 rounds and it's turn 3. So you can set any sort of, and remember always to save. You can set any sort of test values there and then switch those with this. So template means that it's using these values when you test the content within this editor. And default means that it's just using the default values column. These buttons allow you to copy these values to the neighboring column. So you select the direction there. And if you don't want to save your changes, click cancel or just close it from here. And remember to save if you actually want to save any chances that you made, changes, sorry, that you made. So let's look at custom variables. There are different types of variable that you can use. Right now I have created one variable which is called scoring, and it's set to be a Boolean variable. And there are 5 different types here. String is just basically any combination of letters and characters and numbers. Number is obviously a number. So it can't contain any letters or other characters. And numbers are the only variables that you can do any sort of mathematical functions with. Then Boolean means that it's either true or false. So for example, here I can set the default value. Do I want that to be true or false in the beginning? Asset is just a file, basically. So you can have a variable that's directing to a certain asset, which is useful sometimes. It has things to do with like background music, or when you want to play a certain sound effect, then you can just play whatever sound has been assigned to my variable here. So this is just a file, basically. And then text is practically the same content as string, any characters or numbers, but this is translatable content. So once Dized tools have the translation functions, you can also translate these contents. So for example, this could be a text underneath a button in a step, and then you can translate those to different languages based on the language of the content. So let's look a bit more about custom variables. I'll add a new one here, and double clicking here allows me to rename it. So I'm gonna rename this to example. Always have the $sign in the front of it. It just indicates that it's a variable. And if I use several words, the first word is just lowercase, but then I separate the words example number 1. So I just start the second word onwards, the word always with a capital letter. Just an international standard for naming variables. And then there's description. This is my variable. just this is just a note to yourself. So when you open up globals, it's easier to remember what is this variable here for. Just write yourself an instruction here, or anybody else who might access the content, so they will immediately understand that what this variable is all about. So I could have wrote here, I made this as an example for a video. There. So now people would know that, okay, probably it's not being used anywhere. And then I can set the default values, and obviously the default value depends of the kind of variable that I have set. So if it's a number, I can't write anything here. It needs to be a number. And yeah, default value, test value, and this button allows you to delete that. And that is actually all that there is to global variables. There is a fun button here which resets the values. That forgot to. So this deletes those values. These resets whatever they have been to be whatever the reset value has been set to be in Dized. So that's it.